The lady brought up the issue of women not having equal opportunities in society. And again, what I found is stepping from being someone who was, you know, born into a white, well-off family and never really felt those barriers, but then becoming a Muslim and in this atmosphere of increasing Islamophobia and suspicion, I'm feeling that there are sort of barriers being introduced. I'd never, you know, experienced any kind of verbal abuse on the street, but since 7/7, you know, I've had people make comments to me. I worry about what opportunities, what future my children are going to have, just simply because
what are the environmental
Muslim.
factors that have made them make those comments? You know, with this cause and effect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, one of the environmental factors and why I'm so, you know, glad to be here and have an opportunity to speak is that too often there's media coverage where Muslims are spoken about and we're not seen as ordinary people with our own voices.
But that can be changed. I mean, this
yeah,
is
yeah, and linking that back, you know, I see my religion not about just about beliefs and rituals and rules, but about social justice, about fairness. And, you know, that has to include on the economic level, on all these levels. And, yes, you've done very well. But, you know, I've got to say, as somebody myself who was born with a lot of advantages, you know, my parents sent me to private school. I would like everybody to be able to have, you know, that level of education, level of opportunity. And I think that's... you know, an issue for all of us.
But surely that shows that God is unfair by point of fact that there are such a variety of variation of what people have, are born with the kind of skills, we talk about willpower, that's a function of biology, OK?
Genes differ.
Indeed, and this notion, take for example people on the autistic spectrum. OK, there's very good evidence to show that they are less likely to believe in a personal God. So does that mean that God is sitting there and creating people that are less likely to freely come to love him, and then, condemning them to hell? So you've got this idea, we're going back to what Mark and Peter were saying about you've got this group of elects and a group of reprobates where God just sits there and puts them in these sort of pots and you're going to have, you know, paradise forever and you're going to go to hell forever.
It's not what I'd say. That's called double predestination. That's the idea that God chooses to put one in one camp and the other.
That's Mike's position.
That's Mike's position. It's not
no, it's not.
our
God
position.
passes over certain people.
If I can just finish.
OK, I'm agreeing with that because you were agreeing with a lot of what Mark was saying as well, in that there is a plan, God knows the plan, and yet within that plan we have free will. So explain that in your terms as a Muslim.
A story of the Prophet Muhammad that illustrates the Islamic perspective on this. You know, one day the Prophet walked out of the mosque and found a camel just walking around in the street, and he said, whose camel is this? And when the man stepped forward, he asked, why didn't you tie the camel up? And the man said, because I trust in God. God is all-powerful, all-knowing. And the Prophet's advice to this man was, first tie your camel and then trust in God. And that to me sums that up, that as Muslims we believe in personal responsibility. We make choices. We are accountable for trying all the time to make the best choices, trying to do good.
But God knew that camel was going to be tied up.
Yes, absolutely. But at the
Did
same
God plan
time,
for that camel to be tied up? Did God plan for that to happen?
The man didn't tie the camel up.
No, God.
Because we believe that everything that has happened was part of God's plan. But we've got to remember, as human beings, we have a very limited perspective, limited in time and space and knowledge. And if we're believing in infinitely knowledgeable, infinitely wise deity, it's really hard to understand that. But I prefer to sort of take it back to what it means to me as a believer in everyday life, which is, you know, for instance, I do a lot of public speaking. And, you know, I'm a bit of a control freak. I can kind of fall into that human tendency to want to control everything, for want it to be, you know, a human plan, human results. And so I'll keep drafting and redrafting. My husband will sometimes remind me of that story of the camel and say, Catherine, I think you've tied your camel now. You know, if you try and tie it any tighter, you're going to strangle the poor creature. It's time to let go and trust in God.
I know, you want to come back?
Yeah, just on that, I mean, I think it's actually quite amazing. As human beings, we have so much power to shape the decisions that we make based on factors that are distant in time, distant in space. We can take other people's point of view across cultures. This is remarkable. So instead of sort of saying, well, everything is preordained, doesn't really matter, we should use that to make informed decisions about exactly what we do.
You know,
but instead of kicking everything sort of uphill, we have this unique ability to do what we want to do, but we can't decide what to want. We can only decide what to do given what we want.
To me, what I get from that faith in God's powers is and it's a struggle, but when I manage to get that perspective, a calmness that I'm not going to get caught up.
Because Mark thinks you're going to hell.
Absolutely. I'm not going to get caught up in...
Unless things change, she is, isn't she?
Yeah, well, everyone who is outside Christ will go to hell because they are held responsible for their sins. It's not that God wants to send anyone to hell.
Sorry,
and
Catherine,
also, can I say this, that no one will want to go there.
Yeah.
It's a terrible
Predestination,
place.
Clark, predestination, and you might have something to come in on this.
I just want to quickly say that surely we, as a Christian, the only message that matters is the 2 commandments that Jesus actually gave himself, which is to love one another, and that's it.
Well,
everything else in Christianity came from Paul, and so it's Paulianity, not Christianity.
Do we have free will?